Some of you may be living life by the motto of chase the upside. Heck, when you go and sit down at a fancy restaurant, you want the best looking thing on the menu, right? You want the biggest helping you can get. You don't care about the price that's next to it. When you go to look at the house, give me a finished basement, baby, or you're picking out a new vehicle. Ooh, chrome wheels? Let's go with that. But, it works out a lot. You live your life by that motto. You're loving life. You're living life to the fullest. But other times, you chase the upside, and that bill at the end of the meal comes, and you're like, maybe I could have gotten something a little bit cheaper. Or all of a sudden, that car payment and that house payment comes, and you're like, maybe I bit off a little bit more than I could chew. Fantasy football, it could be the same way. Chasing the upside could be great and could give you just the best roster possible. Other times, end up being a disaster and something you regret come the end of the season.
Yeah. Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headline Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back into the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle here on Mock Draft Monday. And today's video is all about chasing that upside. Today's mock draft, we are going after the highest upside players we can possibly find at each pick that we make. This is going to be a fun mock draft. Make sure that you watch through the entire thing and make sure you understand what we're doing, all right? This is not a team that I would normally draft if I'm getting ready to play in a league. This is a team that I'm putting together based on a philosophy that I've predetermined, and that's chasing the upside, giving you an opportunity to see what that could look like if you use the same strategy. So make sure you hit that like button for me and make sure you stick around towards the end of the video. Actually, kind of the middle of the video, I think, is where it's at, because I'm going to tell you how you could win a autographed, full-size Deebo Samuel helmet just for pre-ordering your 2022 Fantasy Headliners Fantasy Football Draft Guide. But we're going to jump into it right now. Ladies and gentlemen, let's kick it on over to our draft board and let's chase that upside, baby. All right, as the title suggested, chasing upside. We're going after upside. And I decided to take the 7th pick in this draft because, well, I fully believe that if you want Jamar Chase this season, that's probably where you're going to have to get him, is that 6th, 7th, 8th overall pick. As you can see here in this draft, Kupp and Jefferson already off the board at 5 and 6, which would leave us with Jamar Chase at number 7. And again, we are taking Jamar Chase. That's the whole point to this draft. We are chasing upside. See what I did there? Yes, dad joke. Anyway, the reason we're going after Jamar Chase here in the first round is because I want to draft players with the highest upside potential in this draft. And I think Jamar Chase is probably going to be one of the highest upside potential players in all of football this year. There is some risk with it, but when you chase upside, there's always going to be some risk. So we are going to evaluate what does that risk look like compared to the players that we are taking, because sometimes the risk is worth it. So we get Jamar Chase in the first round. We got our big time wide receiver there. Now, for me, it's going to be really hard to go wide receiver. In my last mock draft video, you saw me do it. A majority of you didn't love the team because, again, we just didn't have that good of running backs because we waited until the 3rd round to take our first running back. So let's try to stay balanced. Here. And again, when we talk about chasing upside, we're looking for the players that have the opportunity to score us the most points on a weekly basis. I don't care about their floor right now. I only care about their ceiling. And Alvin Kamara at the running back position has to have one of the highest ceilings on a weekly basis. Now, things are a little bit different in New Orleans this year, but hopefully the good news is that because they've got so many playmakers now on the outside, that Alvin Kamara is a guy that can get back to doing what he did best. But Javonte Williams, he's probably got the most upside out of majority of the running backs, But his floor on a weekly basis isn't that safe because of Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon being there is tough for his floor because his volume might not be there consistently. But we know with Javonte Williams, the ceiling could definitely be there because of how great he is being efficient with the football, how many tackles he breaks and avoids. One of the best running backs in football last year in that area. Aaron Jones is another one because Aaron Jones, if you look at his numbers with no Devontae Adams on the field, he is a PPR machine. Now, this is half PPR, so a little bit different, but his upside also really big with his upside there. So for me, in terms of what we got here, I think I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara. He's the guy with the least competition in the backfield on his team. He's the guy that presents the highest upside because we've seen him do it before. So let's go Alvin Kamara with our second overall pick. So we'll have Chase and Kamara to get things started. And let's let it wrap back around to us here and see what we can get our hands on in the third round. All right. Running back wise, things aren't looking too great. Antonio Gibson, not super excited about. Cam Akers, not excited about. David Montgomery, not super excited about. James Conner as our RB2 is an interesting one. Again, in terms of upside, he should have a pretty decent upside. He doesn't have, he's got, Darrell Williams hanging out behind him, but that's not that big of an issue. We saw what he could do in the red zone last year. Definitely a guy that's going to score a ton of touchdowns. And this year, they're probably going to work him into the passing game a little bit more often. Number one, because no DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 games of the year. And Chase Edmonds, who was their main pass catching back last year, is gone. So James Conner here could end up being a really good pick. Let's take a look at wide receivers. Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Jalen Waddle. Now, out of the wide receivers that are left on the board here right now, T. Higgins probably has the highest upside. We know in that offense that he's going to be a guy that is absolutely going to let it fly. However, we already have Jamar Chase. For our wide receiver 1 and 2, do we really want to have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase? It could end up working out, but you find yourself in a position where if for some reason Cincinnati doesn't have a great game, now you've really handcuffed your potential that week. Deontay Johnson, I like the potential for Deontay Johnson. I think he has a low floor, though, just because we don't know what he can do with these new quarterbacks. Is it going to be Mitchell Trubisky? Is it going to be Kenny Pickett? They've added Pickens, who knows where he's going to play. Could potentially be the slot. For me, for Deontay Johnson, I love to see Deontay Johnson in the slot, because his role over the last 2 years on this Pittsburgh team has been a guy that sees a lot of targets in that 10-yard range and does a lot with the ball after the catch. But that could end up limiting some of his upside this year. We know that, right? That could limit some of his upside this year, because if he still ends up being the same player, some of those big plays may not be there for him. And that could be an issue. So if we're chasing upside, Deontay Johnson's probably not a guy upside-wise we're going to chase. Safety-wise, yeah, because he's still going to probably get a nice amount of targets. But upside, probably not going to be there. Terry McLaurin with Carson Wentz, the upside will definitely be there with Terry McLaurin. Probably a team that could end up being behind at times. We saw that defense last year didn't really play up to expectations. Could end up being a little bit better this year, but that division could end up being a little bit better overall. So they might have to throw the ball around quite a bit. Terry McLaurin is going to be potentially a guy that, yes, loses some of those big play potentials because they've added Jahan Dotson, but he has all that opportunity there to really stack up a lot of volume. DK Metcalf, if you're looking at upside, DK Metcalf is probably the upside guy here. If you had to pick somebody, DK Metcalf, probably the upside guy. Just because, again, we saw it last year. Volume may not be there for him this year. This looks like a team that's going to get back to running the football and running the football a lot. And with DK Metcalf, obviously the quarterback position with Drew Lock, Geno Smith, it just doesn't look like it's going to be a great situation for him. But we know the dude can score touchdowns. We know he can score touchdowns in bunches. We know he can rip off big plays. That defense may not end up being as good as we've seen in recent years. Out of everybody listed here, DK Metcalf probably has the highest upside for me, even though I would have him ranked behind Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin. He's probably got more upside than all of those guys. From a tight end standpoint, George Kittle absolutely has the highest upside of all of the tight ends that are listed here. So now the question is, do we go tight end with George Kittle, or do we go wide receiver with DK Metcalf? More than likely, George Kittle will be gone before DK Metcalf. If you look at the rankings, obviously, if we had real people in here, it could mess it, it could be a little bit different, but because this is a draft with the computer, George Kittle for me will probably end up being gone before DK Metcalf. So I'm actually going to stay even more balanced at this point, and I'm going to go with George Kittle, and then we'll see if DK Metcalf or James Conner are available for us when it comes back around. So let's go ahead and go with George Kittle. Waller off the board right after that. Gibson, Akers. There goes Deontay Johnson and Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, David Montgomery, T. Higgins. Okay, so DK Metcalf is off the board now at this point. But our other choice, James Conner, has made it back to us. Which, when we talked about it a minute ago with James Conner, going to be more involved in the passing game. Still going to have an opportunity to score touchdowns. We've seen that upside potential with him because of how many touchdowns he scored last year. If you look at the running backs listed after him, there's not a whole lot of guys that I would take. And if we miss another running back at this point, we are going to find ourselves in a little bit of an issue come a couple of rounds from now. So we're going to go with James Conner here as our RB2 behind Alvin Kamara. Upside-wise, I think we're looking at a team with a lot of upside. Other concerns? Sure, but lots of upside still to boot with it. What do we have coming up now at our position, wide receiver-wise? We've got Godwin, Allen Robinson, Courtland Sutton, DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, Mike Williams. Chris Godwin, upside may not end up being there. Allen Robinson, I think upside is probably there with Allen Robinson, right? So for me here, it's kind of, okay, we're going upside. Allen Robinson, Courtland Sutton, Marquise Brown. DeAndre Hopkins, I can't quite jump on him yet. He's probably another round away. I'd rather have him in the 6th or the 7th round. Quarterback-wise, I know in my last mock draft, a lot of you were like, hey, Kyle, you got to go quarterback earlier. So if we're looking for upside here at the quarterback position, out of everybody listed here, the upside is Jalen Hurts, just because of what he provides running-wise. Kyler Murray probably won't be available for me. I've got Kyler Murray over Jalen Hurts. I would take Kyler Murray's upside over Jalen Hurts, but more than likely, Kyler Murray isn't going to be available, and I'm not going to go with a quarterback here because I'm going to go with another wide receiver. So really, for me, it comes down to, is it Allen Robinson or is it Marquise Brown? I'm probably going to end up going with Allen Robinson here. Why? We've seen it more from him. Allen Robinson is more of your prototypical wide receiver one. Yes, he's going to be limited from Cooper Kupp. So maybe his floor on a weekly basis won't be that safe. But if the Rams find themselves, especially in a tough division, in shootouts, Allen Robinson should have a good weekly upside just because of, them throwing the football. If they're throwing the football quite a bit, Allen Robinson, to me, has a little bit more upside than Marquise Brown. And we also know that Marquise Brown, while having a lot of upside earlier in the year, will lose out to DeAndre Hopkins later in the year. So for upside, we're not going to go with Courtland Sutton. Again, we have seen it with Courtland Sutton, but not that often. Allen Robinson, we've seen it more consistently over the years. We've seen the big plays. We've seen the upside. I'm going to go with Allen Robinson here in that upside. Kyler Murray ends up going right after him, kind of as we discussed. Hawkins and Schultz, Mitchell's gone, Dillon, Sutton, Sanders. So it's all the way back to us. And like we talked about a little bit ago, I'm not a fan of Jalen Hurts. I don't like Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a guy that I'm avoiding. But if we're realistically talking about a mock draft, where our sole purpose is to draft as many players as possible that have the most upside, then yes, he is going to be the guy here, I believe. I believe we need to go with Jalen Hurts. I think if I wait, so how many guys? We've got 4 teams in front of us that have already picked a quarterback. So we could get a little risky, skip Jalen Hurts, knowing that there's only 2 teams that would take a quarterback next. Team 1 is going to need a running back. Team 3, pretty balanced at this point. If I had to expect, Jalen Hurts would end up going here, and they would pick 2 more times before it would come back to me. So if I skip with Jalen Hurts, my next choice is at quarterback, if we're talking about upside, is probably Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, maybe even Matthew Stafford. But again, we want upside, right? Based on his rushing ability, we know Jalen Hurts has a lot of weekly upside. Yes, he's going to be a headache some week. Yes, we're going to left shaking our head saying, man, there's so much more that he could have done this week that he just didn't do. So upside-wise, maybe he takes a step forward as a passer this year. I am going to go with Jalen Hurts here. Don't love it. Not a fan of the pick. But again, it's what we are doing in this mock draft. And because that's what we're doing in this mock draft, that's really what we need to focus on. All right, we're going to need to grab another wide receiver because we only have 2 right now, and you have to play 3 in this league the way it's set up. So let's take a look at wide receiver. Running back is also something we're going to need to get again pretty soon. We'll talk about that as it wraps back around to us here. We've got 2 running backs. We're not going to love our running back depth at this point. Again, another reason why we continue to say you got to go running back early and often because you're going to left a little underwhelmed this season. Let's go back to the wide receiver position. I want to just check one thing. Okay, good. All right, so wide receiver position. Adam Thielen, Darnell Mooney, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyler Lockett, Elijah Moore. Now, out of everybody here, we know Tyler Lockett has the highest upside. He's got the best big play potential. We've seen it, right? Over the course of the last few years, Tyler Lockett is a guy that will single-handedly win weeks for you. But that was with Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett, they had some of the best connection in all of football, and that's not going to be there anymore for Tyler Lockett. So if we take a look at Adam Thielen, he's still got Kirk Cousins. Problem with Adam Thielen is, for me, he's very touchdown dependent. And volume has started to dwindle just a little bit because, number 1, he's dealt with injuries. Number 2, Justin Jefferson has developed into an elite wide receiver here in the league. Number 3, you've got Irv Smith Jr. coming back this year, hopefully fully healthy, ready to go. Adam Thielen's upside is a little limited for me. Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney's got decent upside. In some of those big play videos that you saw me do, Darnell Mooney's name did pop up. He is a guy that could end up being a big play threat this year for the Chicago Bears. But how big of a threat? That's the question. Their offensive line isn't going to be that good. They don't really have a whole lot of weapons around Mooney to help him, so he's going to have to face cornerback 1 coverage on a consistent basis. Those things are a little worrisome for me. Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, is he going to be the wide receiver 1 there? Who knows? Hopefully he's in the slot. We've seen him put together huge upside numbers before. This is going to be an offense that can dramatically help him out, but we have not seen him in that offense before. So for me, based on these top guys available, my wide receiver 3 is going to have to be Darnell Mooney. Because I think, yes, he does have the biggest upside here of everybody listed. I think you could make a case here that Juju Smith-Schuster would be very, very close. But with it being a new offense, I'm going to be a little bit hesitant on it. And I'm going to end up going with Darnell Mooney instead. So we know we're going to need another running back here very soon. And not a whole lot of running backs coming off the board at this point. Let's see what we've got at the running back position. Devin Singletary, Tony Pollard, Chase Edmonds, Michael Carter, James Cook, Rashad Penny, James Robinson, and Melvin Gordon. So, for me, out of everybody listed here, highest upside for me is Tony Pollard. He's got the highest upside for me. I love Tony Pollard. I think they're going to get him more included into the game plan this year. I think they're going to try to split him out wide in the slot a little bit more often. I think they're going to do a lot of things to offset the formation. And if you buy our draft guide, which if you do pre-order a draft guide right now, you have potential to win some sweet swag from Pristine Auction. We've got some autographed helmets, a Deebo Samuel signed helmet, a bunch of jerseys. You could win one of those things. Make sure that you go to pristineauction.com and use code word headliners when you sign up for a free account. They're going to give you a $10 coupon for your first purchase. But my DRBR, my dynamic running back rating in the draft guide, I'm going to talk about Tony Pollard quite a bit. He's got some potential this year. If we're talking about upside here, just taking a quick look at wide receivers, I mean, we really need another running back. I'm going to go Tony Pollard first, and hopefully some of those wide receivers get back to us. I like Tony Pollard's potential, especially as a flex option this year. Flex option. We're not really tied down to him too much, which is good. All right. Back to us again at this point. Let's see what we have for the wide receivers. Chase Claypool, Jameson Williams, Kadarius Toney, Michael Gallup, Sky Moore, Christian Kirk, Allen Lazard, Russell Gage. Running backs, Carter, Cook, Penny, Robinson, Gordon, Spiller, Stevenson, Ronald Jones. All right, so I mean, we could go another tight end here. We really don't need to. I'm not a big fan of drafting 2 tight ends. Just not a big fan of it at all. Wide receiver wise, Chase Claypool's probably got the biggest upside, right? We've seen him rip off those big plays time and time again. We know he has the ability to do it. Kadarius Toney, I would like to take Kadarius Toney here because I think he does have the highest upside, but he finds himself in the doghouse right now in New York. I mean, this was a team that, based on reports, was trying to rid themselves of him this year. I don't love that. For me, I mean, come on. Kadarius Toney, if we're drafting a guy that his own team doesn't even want him, or it seems like, why would we even want him? Our injury concern is going to be an issue. Those are lots of questions to answer. Michael Gallup's not going to be healthy. Jameson Williams is not going to be healthy. Sky Moore is not someone I'm really taking a bid on. Christian Kirk, we're going to be able to wait a little bit for. So for me, if we're talking about upside, it's got to be Chase Claypool here. I think he offers the best upside of any of the guys that are currently available at the position. Melvin Gordon off the board. I was hoping Melvin Gordon would make it back to us because he's kind of a safe option for us to pick at the running back position. He does not, though. He does not. So, we've got ourselves some trouble here, right? Because we've got 3 running backs, okay? We've got Kamara, Connor, and Pollard. But overall, our running back situation, not great. So, which one of these running backs currently on the board could end up offering us the most upside? Ramondre Stevenson had some of the best scores for a rookie running back in terms of grades like through Pro Football Focus of all time. He was really, really good last year. I love myself some Ramondre Stevenson. If you've been around, you heard me talk about him quite a bit before last year. I like this guy, but he's got Damian Harris there, which is a problem for me because Damian Harris isn't going to go anywhere. So for me, yes, I think Ramondre Stevenson could have, because he's got that burst, he's got that big play potential. So on a weekly basis, yeah, he could have a pretty decent ceiling because he could rip off some big plays. We also know how Bill Belichick operates. If Damian Harris were to put the ball on the ground, Ramondre Stevenson's probably going to see a majority of the touches the rest of the game. Ronald Jones could take over as the lead back. We haven't seen a whole lot from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. He hasn't been nearly as effective as a lot of people would like him to be. So he could end up taking over at some point, right? So it's between these 2 guys. Isaiah Spiller, maybe some safe floor just based on rushing upside, or just based on his rushing potential, because we know he's going to get the ball on the ground quite a bit. But Austin Eckler holds the upside in that offense. It's not going to be Spiller. So it's Stevenson or Ronald Jones. I'm going to go ahead and risk it with my boy, Ramondre Stevenson. All right, let's watch this come all the way back around to us here. Christian Kirk off the board. I wanted him to be my next guy. Wide receiver wise, we do have plenty of wide receivers now. Anybody here? Pickens, Myers, Dotson, Landry, Moore, Chark. Out of all the upside here, for me personally, it's got to be DJ Chark. Lions defense could be a little bit better. Maybe not a ton. A little bit, but maybe not a ton. They're going to be throwing it. DJ Chark was brought in. He's going to be the big play guy. We don't know when Jameson Williams is going to be healthy. Jahan Dotson, it could end up being him. In terms of big playability out of the group listed right here. We know he's got that ability. Running back wise, Alexander Mattison is sitting here right now. For me personally, I probably risk it with Alexander Mattison. Add a guy, because this is a little bit larger roster, add a guy that I can trust that at some point this season, could get me a couple of games of production because we know Dalvin Cook is, good to miss a couple of games here and there. So I think we grab him and have that as a potential either trade option or backup option if Dalvin Cook does end up missing significant time. So I'm going to go with Alexander Mattison here because our running back situation isn't great right now. So I'd like us to kind of lock another person in so we could, kind of help influence what we have there in terms of just a tough situation with our running back depth. All right, next guy up. I feel like we've done a pretty good job of staying very balanced with our roster here. As I said earlier, not a big fan of drafting multiple tight ends because, listen, if I miss out on a tight end, whatever, bye week, I'll just stream somebody that option. For me, I kind of do want to grab another tight end here at some point over the next couple of rounds, just because we know that George Kittle has had some issues with injuries over the last couple of years. So taking a look at really everybody kind of in this area, there aren't going to be a whole lot of upside guys in this area. Outside of the one guy that I've already kind of talked about with Jahan Dotson and DJ Chark, I am going to go ahead and grab DJ Chark here and bring him into the fold as being a guy with... Why have we got guys... This is a 16-round draft, and there's kickers coming off the board. These robots don't listen to the fantasy headliners. They should. Tight end wise, I'm going to go ahead and go with David Njoku now. Really the only kind of tight end, Austin Hooper gone, not the only tight end left, but Austin Hooper's gone. Jarvis Landry's gone. Definitely a great opportunity for David Njoku this year to find his breakout. Hopefully that happens. It's been a guy that, really been waiting on for quite some time, but we're going to go ahead and take him there. Wide receiver wise, Patrick, OBJ. You could go with OBJ here, and hopefully he signs with someone and works his way back. Van Jefferson is another option, but earlier in the draft, we went with Allen Robinson. So we're going to skip on Van Jefferson. Running back wise, not a whole lot of upside here either. We could end up going with a Khalil Herbert in case David Montgomery goes down. Don't really need to do that, though. Not a big fan of it. Darrell Williams from Arizona. Knowing that we have James Conner, we could handcuff him with Darrell Williams. Probably another round away from that. I am going to go ahead, and I'm going to stick here in the wide receiver zone. I'm going to go with Devontae Parker. Great opportunity to be the wide receiver one in New England this year. Maybe help take Mac Jones to that next level. I'm going to go ahead and go with Devontae Parker and bring him into the fold to help out with the wide receiver depth just a little bit more. Running back wise, we talked about all these guys here. Darrell Williams, I'm going to go ahead and handcuff James Conner with Darrell Williams. Want to make sure that I have the opportunity if something were to happen. Again, I haven't taken a kicker yet. I could take a kicker or a defense here if I want to. I don't take kickers and defense this early in the offseason. Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Projected points, Buffalo Bills. This has kind of been my go-to first round kind of pick or last round pick for Buffalo. Grabbing them and having them kind of be my defense here in the last round. But, overall, let's take a quick look at the draft board and just kind of go over again what we did with the draft here. Jamar Chase, first overall pick, followed by, or not first overall, but first round pick, followed by Kamara and Kittle, then Connor, Robinson, Jalen Hurts, Darnell Mooney, Tony Pollard, Chase Claypool, Ramondre Stevenson, Alexander Mattison, DJ Chark, David Njoku, Devontae Parker, Darrell Williams, and the Buffalo Bills defense. Again, this draft was all about upside. We were chasing that upside. So every single pick I made, I wanted to keep in mind which one of these guys that I'm currently looking at has the opportunity for most upside this season. I think we did a pretty good job of that with Chase and Kamara and Kittle. Great upside in those first three picks. I think Connor's going to be a guy that's going to have some good upside this year, followed by Robinson, Jalen Hurts, one of the ultimate upside plays at the quarterback position. Mooney and Pollard and Claypool. We started to get a little bit safer towards the end because obviously when you get that far in the draft, there aren't going to be a whole lot of guys. But hey, let me know in the comments what y'all are thinking about this team in terms of chasing upside. Do you think we did what we were supposed to here? What do you think overall about this team? Any players here that you wouldn't want to draft? Any players here that you definitely want to have on your team? Make sure you let me know down in the comments below. Also, hit that like button for me. Hit it. Just tap it real quick. It's free and easy to do. And if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, hit the subscribe button and stick around. Ladies and gentlemen, stay safe and stay healthy, and I'll catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.
Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. Y'all stuck on third down. Your content's plain Jane. Headliners on top now. We gonna move and change. Podcast off the rip. Draft guide, so legit. Fantasy world, our game tight. You know we about that chub life. Stuck in a rut and you need some motivation. Head to the channel for this Headliner Nation. I'm a